Okay, my loves. I know there are a lot of you that are out there that are really wondering, how do I even set boundaries anymore? Maybe you didn't grow up with great boundaries. Maybe boundaries weren't really modeled well for you, or maybe you were told that you cannot have boundaries. Maybe you're tired of being gaslighted in your relationships, and you're tired of feeling crazy all the time and guilty for trying to make a difference in your life. If this is you, then I want you to come schedule a call with me. Let's chat about the Unashamed Image Program. The Unashamed Image Program is geared towards you specifically. I am going to be helping you in our next upcoming session of the Unashamed Image. I am personally going to train you how to not feel crazy when someone is gaslighting you, how to be able to stand your ground, to keep your boundaries intact, and to also see through the bull crap. I am also going to be teaching you how to set really confident boundaries that you can really rely on. And I'm going to help you communicate them in a way that really makes sense. Basically, I'm going to help you live a life free of shame and on your terms. If you are ready and you are done feeling all the shame and guilt for trying to set boundaries, if you are not willing to live another moment the way you are right now and in somebody else's shadow, then this is the time to schedule that call with me. It's completely free, no pressure, just love, just support. Go to www.erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. Scroll down the page to where it says, Let's Chat About Working Together. Click on that button and it'll take you to my booking page. If you're ready to live the unashamed life, schedule that call. Let's get you in the Unashamed Image Program, my loves. From my heart to your heart. Bye. Hey everyone, welcome to another podcast of The Other Side of the Struggle by Erin Anderson, Betrayal Trauma Coaching. I'm Erin Anderson, your host. And if you're just joining this podcast, we talk about how I healed from betrayal trauma and some of the things I've learned along the way as I continue to heal and as I continue to coach other men and women through their traumas. Before we dive into this week's episode, though, let me tell you a little bit about my free Facebook group for women who are going through betrayal trauma due to a husband's addiction. In this group, women are able to voice how they feel about the struggle they are going through with the addiction, find a camaraderie of other women going through similar situations, and get some detailed coaching from me, plus any other events or offers that I have going on. You can find me at www.facebook.com/groups/The Other Side of the Struggle, on Instagram at Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coach. Just leave the H off. And or you can come join our Facebook group for couples at www.facebook.com/groups/positive healing for LDS marriages and relationships. Also, we've been working on a great surprise for all my listeners and followers, so keep listening, stay tuned, because I'll be announcing that in the next few weeks. Anyway, I wanted to tell you how excited I really am about this week because I have a very special guest with us that we're going to be talking with today. Kushla Chadwick has been my friend and mentor for the last 5 years and has done some amazing things to help me and my online business grow. She's helped me go from 0 sales to 6 figures because she helped me see what is actually possible inside myself and what I can really do for the people that I want to serve. She grew up in New Zealand and she moved to Sydney, Australia when she was a teen and did competitive speed skating for several years. The things she learned in speed skating has helped her scale her own online business to 7 figures, and now she She loves, I should say, loves helping women just like you and me learn how to grow an online business and to gain an abundant mindset. And because we're discussing the abundance tier today, and Kushla has been one of the biggest influences in my abundant mindset, I couldn't think of anyone better to discuss abundance with you than Kushla. I
Mhm.
know you'll love her as much as I do. So sit back, make sure you have your notepad ready because whether or not you're ready to build an online business or if you're just wanting to have a better abundance mindset because you realize it will help you heal your trauma, she's going to have some really, really juicy tidbits of wisdom to share with you today. Kushla, welcome to the Other Side of the Struggle podcast. I am excited to have you here today to discuss the abundance tier and how having an abundant mindset can help you heal through trauma and also gaining some lasting, trusting, and fulfilling relationships. Before we dive in, though, I would love to have you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you came from, and what kind of growth you have had to do to gain your own abundant mindset.
Firstly, thank you for having me on here, Erin. It was cool hearing a little bit about, when I was younger and the speed skating and stuff. But I'm thrilled to be on here with you. I'm thrilled to have worked with you over the years and seen your life change and your business grow and all of those things. Yeah, so your question for me was, I guess, about mindset and the abundance mindset. And I have learned so much about abundance and so much about mindset myself over the years. And I think we're going to have a really awesome conversation.
Yes,
I'm really
I'm
looking forward to
excited. I
it.
know. A little guilty pleasure, honestly. I was sitting there like, I have all these questions for her. Let me just put it on a podcast.
Yeah. I'm
So,
excited.
yeah, I am too. So tell us a little bit seriously about like your abundant mindset, like how you've noticed it grow and what are some of the things that happened in your life that got you from point A to point B in your abundance mindset.
Mm. I guess like anyone, there could be a lot of moments that I could take, and say, well, this was really helpful and this was really helpful. If we were to look at it, from one side of the coin, I could say like all the hard things that I've gone through have been so informative and so helpful. And I'm sure knowing you probably have some questions about like some of the traumas that I've gone through that have been really helpful. So,
Maybe.
yeah. So those things for sure have been really informative and educational and life-changing positive experiences for me. And then also just like using what I've learned over the years and implement it and playing with it and experiencing it for myself have also been amazing experiences as well. So today I hope to speak about it from both of those sides. Like, what's it like to play on like the side of abundance where you're approaching it from like this anything is possible kind of open mind framework, and also the framework of like, hey, I've gone through this crap. I'm like healing some things, and for your audience, many of them have gone through or are going through some really traumatizing experiences with their spouse or partner. And so how do you then journey forward into whatever abundance is for you, looking at it from both those sides of things? Because I think it's important to address both of those sides when
Definitely.
it comes to abundance. Yeah.
So, what would you define abundance as? Like, based on your experiences in life, what is abundance to you?
So for me, I think of abundance as basically just this overjoyed feeling, right? I also think that abundance is very personal. So, what feels abundant to me, it might feel like scarcity to someone else, right? Might even be repugnant to someone else, right? And same for someone else. Someone else might think, oh, I feel so overjoyed with what I'm experiencing. Might be like, what? Like, and that might feel like scarcity to me, or it might feel like, oh yeah, whatever. So it's like really, really personal. sometimes people look at abundance as like a destination, like when I've built the 6-figure business, or when I've built the 7-figure business, or maybe not a business at all. Maybe it's like, when all our bills get paid off and we have like $10,000 in savings, then I can feel great. Or, $100,000 in saving, or when I've bought the house or paid off the mortgage, or whatever the end point is for us, right? Sometimes we think that abundance comes at the arrival of the end point, and abundance is like actually claimable immediately. And it's a feeling, and it's a very beautiful, like I just call it's an overjoyed type of feeling. And for me, I think we can look at abundance like I can feel overjoyed because of the abundance in my life now. So it can be relative to like what's happening in this time and space. I can feel abundant for what's coming to me. So it can be future based. And I can feel abundant for what's already gone in my life. And, for those who are actually feeling the effects of trauma like quite strongly right now, that might feel like, oh, that's a load of shat, Kushla,
Right.
like
I get it.
they might think like that's a load of rubbish, like that is just not true. That I can look to my past, but I think even for those of us who've gone through the very worst of experiences, or what we feel like are the worst, if we think about it, like there's going to be lessons, and those lessons will help you to create more of what you want in life, and those lessons can be really invaluable. So I think trauma can be a really inspiring, motivating journey once you're able to become the observer in the journey and not be stuck in it and stuck in the
Yes.
like passenger seat of it.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I mean, this is something I say um to my clients and my listeners all the time, that trauma doesn't necessarily have to be a trauma. It can actually be the beginning of something very beautiful
Mm.
if we're willing to be in the passenger seat and take a look at some of the experiences and our thoughts and our feelings that have gotten us to where we're at right now. um it's a huge catalyst. Like, if I hadn't experienced what I've experienced in my life, if I hadn't experienced the trauma and the abuse and the betrayal and everything that I've gone through at the hands of my relationships, I wouldn't be sitting in this driver's seat now. I wouldn't have up leveled that car, if that makes sense. And so uh being able to sit back is
Mm-hmm.
really powerful, because it can teach you, okay, this is where I'm at, but this is actually what I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
absolutely.
And, the other thing that I was like making a mental note of here is how you were saying that abundance can be different for everyone. Like, that was kind of one of those juicy tidbits for me, because
Mm.
for me, I remember when someone said, for things to change, I must change. For things to get better, I must get better. I seriously wanted to huck a tomato from my my
Love
seat.
that.
I was sitting in this great big huge room with like 100, and like actually more than 100, like hundreds of people, and there was somebody sitting up on the stage, and they said that, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, how dare you? How dare you say that to my face? Like, how? But to be honest, like, now that I've let that marinate, I didn't huck the tomato, just so you know. But now, now that I've let that marinate, I'm sitting here like, yeah, it's true. You know, if we want abundance, to me now, abundance is, yes, it encompasses finances. Yes, it encompasses things. It encompasses the things I want, but it also encompasses the ability to consistently get better, you know?
Mm. Yeah,
And I think that's part of the reason why I'm able to attract the good things I've been attracting lately. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, abundance is all encompassing, right? It's in every area of our lives. It's in our health, it's in our money, it's in our relationships, and it's in the meaning, it's in our missions in life. And that overjoyed feeling, which we think is related to a result, can be so immediate and so fast. And, you know, you and I both believe in God,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure probably most of your audience do as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that there doesn't have to be an order to miracles. And a lot of the time we think like, again, I can feel this way. I can feel better. I can feel great. Maybe I can feel abundant. And I don't know that we necessarily go around thinking I want to feel abundant. It's just, you know, a vocabulary that we have to describe kind of, we want to feel great, right?
Oh,
We
yeah.
want to feel, you know, but all of that is available to us so quickly. And miracles can come at such an epic rate.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
if someone wants to, if for them abundance would mean more money right now, like I know that there are so many things being orchestrated for their good, especially when we open ourselves up to like the things that really do invite more of that feeling in our lives and more abundance. So hopefully we'll talk about some of the practical things that we can do through the podcast today that do help people to go from just like this, the thought of being abundant, to actually thinking and feeling like an abundant person and attracting more abundance into their lives.
Oh, I think we'll definitely be getting into that soon because, you know, traumas, if we allow it, can teach us, you know, to stay stuck. And, you know, that's where I was at like 10 years ago. I was just so stuck. But now, and, you know, I think especially people that have dealt with betrayal trauma, they think that the other person has to heal before they can. And so it's just more of a stuck feeling. And that stuckness is that, you know, opposite that scarcity. But being abundant is understanding what your power is and the fact that you can use that power, that gas, in a sense, to keep your vehicle rolling. And yeah, we're definitely actually going to talk about that a little bit later in this podcast because with some of the uncertainties that are coming up in the world today, you know, we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah.
But
sure.
The next question I had is, everyone has a trauma at some point in their life. It would be nice if we could avoid it, but I haven't met anyone yet on this planet that hasn't had some kind of trauma in their life, Jesus Christ included. So I guarantee we're going to deal with trauma at some point. And I personally know that when I was constantly focused on my own trauma, that's where I was the poorest. Like, I had the most scarcity mindset ever. Like, that's why I was feeling stuck all the time, like I just said earlier. But changing how I viewed my trauma and how it was actually teaching me some amazing lessons about myself and what I was capable of started actually creating wealth and abundance for me. So I'd love to hear a similar situation in your own life where you learned something amazingly abundant from a trauma you received. So how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. You know, they've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. So having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves. So that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really, really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you.
Yeah. I think a good one. I mean, like you guys, I've had plenty of them. I could like pull a bunch, oh, there's this one, and this
File
one,
that
there's
one
this one.
away, that one.
Yeah. But I think a really significant one for me would have been when I was about 13 years old and my mum and dad divorced, or my mom and dad divorced, right? So I'm the youngest of 6 children, and I had gone from living in a household of like 9 people, because there was 6 children, mum and dad, my granddad, which I would say my koro, so my grandfather. He passed away, and then a sister came to live in Australia, another one went to college, another went to Australia, and like they all went, and then it was just me left at home, and my mum and dad separated. And then I came to live in Australia with my eldest sister. So I came over here when I was 13 in 1988. And I basically went through my teenage years being unparented. And, that was,
That's
yeah.
tricky.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
tricky. My sister had her own young family, which she would focus on. And, I had like a very loving family. I don't want to give the, thing that my parents didn't love and care for me. They certainly did. But from I didn't feel them actively in my lives for most of my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
And so that had its own kind of ongoing traumas involved in that. Like, it was really difficult, and like more traumatic things happened during that period as well. But I want to tell you what I took away from that whole experience. Because I was 13, I worked when I was 11. I had a paper run in New Zealand, which is where I was born and grew up. And then when I moved over here, I worked for a little bit. And then I realized the legal age is actually 14 and 9 months, whatever it was. So I had to wait a bit. But basically, I did the best that I could to support myself while I was living with my sister. And I learned some things. I learned how to problem solve. I learned how to motivate myself, because having done competitive speed skating, I had 3 coaches, like 2 world level coaches, and then one was my mum. And she really did motivate me. She really understood some great things about psychology and sports and stuff. But I learned to motivate myself. I learned to problem solve. I learned to work to create money. And there was a part of me that just kind of figured out stuff, because I was freeballing it. I was freeballing it without the adult supervision. And I really grew some audacious levels of self-confidence during that time,
Mm-hmm.
And so that has been a real gift to me. I think that, plus the fact, that I did the competitive speed skating, and did exceptionally well at it, because I started it again when I come over to Australia. So from the age of 7 to 17, I did competitive speed skating. And, I just learned some audacious confidence through going through really difficult times.
And I think that that's actually a piece to abundance, to be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
because um, I think about, some of the traumas I received, and like my mom and dad, they're still married and things, but I definitely received some trauma at the hands of my mom and my grandma. And again, not to lambast them, like I have great relationships with them now, and I'm very grateful for both women and the way they actually showed up in my life now.
Yeah, yeah.
But um, realizing like what kind of confidence level you can actually have, and it's not arrogance. It's actually the most humble thing you can possibly have. You know, just a really, really solid set of self-confidence. And I think that's actually a really big piece to abundance because when you have that confidence in yourself and you have that confidence in God, um, then you can start to actually create.
100%. 100%. Like, people ask me about how I can, like, just make decisions the way I make decisions, do the things the way I do them, and create results the way I create them. It'd be like, well, two things. One, I know that God's got my back.
Mhm.
And number two, I've got my back. Like, really, that's all that matters. If I want to talk about creating things, I have, and that's part of that audacious confidence. Like, not that I have my back, not that I know all the answers to anything or everything. It's just that I have confidence I can figure it out if I don't.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and
Yes.
also I mean, I've got confidence in God. Like, hey, he's like the supreme creator here. And I'm sure when I go to him for instruction, inspiration, direction, like, yeah, I'm like, I have confidence in him. I have confidence in myself. You're right. Those are a huge piece. I think that the vital piece of abundance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
And I think that like some aspects to abundance, yes, while it might like different for
Mm-hmm.
everyone, I think that like there are some anchors, like self-confidence, definitely
Yeah,
is
for
one
sure.
of those, one of those. So when you receive traumas now, understanding that self-confident, well, you know what, we actually kind of talked a little bit about that because you were saying like I was going to ask you like how you know going through that time helps you heal your traumas now. And I think we kind of hit the nail on the head. It
Yeah,
taught
yeah,
you to be
yeah.
confident. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, let's keep moving then.
Sure.
uh, one of the things I teach my listeners is how the tiers are all interconnected. You've got the God tier that pumps living water to the self tier, which pumps water into the others tier, and which pumps water into the abundance tier. And then the abundance tier feeds back into the God tier, and the cycle of flow continues. And I'm curious, how has creating more abundance in your life helped you connect to God, yourself, and others?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if it's abundance that's helped me to do that, or if the being connected to God and others has helped me to create abundance. It's like this circle. So
Mm-hmm.
where the starting point is for someone, whether it's abundance, and then you see how that impacts your relationship with God, or whether it's your relationship with God and you see how that impacts abundance. Like, it's all interconnected, right?
Yes, it is.
And so I will say, because I'll start off with, for me, the way that I have that relationship with God, which I was just speaking about, and my full confidence in Him, it makes create the thought of creating things feel very easy to me, because I have this trust in Him, and I'm like, I don't need to honestly figure out too much. Like,
Right.
there's not, I understand that there's a very small little dot of what I would say my power, like where I have the ability to act and choose within, right? This very
Yes.
tiny, almost perceivable for some people, little dot of power. And out of that range, there's other people doing their things, but there's God. And I know He's orchestrating so many things in my favor. particularly when I approach him in this joyful nature, this abundant nature, and this thankful feeling, like I'm seeing and acknowledging like the good that he does that I see. And I know there's so much good that he does that I don't see. So
Mm-hmm.
much good that he's done that I'm not aware of. And I can't wait for the day where all is revealed and I get to go, wow, oh my goodness, he did that. Like, oh, wow, I had no idea.
Awesome! Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I
So,
totally hear you. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so I feel like that feeds into everything. And I just know that as I do things that create abundance and I have practices that create more abundance, I naturally feel just more connected to everyone and everything. So I feel like, when someone really has an abundant energy about them, they've got an abundant frequency, they are magnetic. Like
Yes.
there's a light about them. And so, you naturally attract kind of deeper relationships with people, more
Yes.
fun relationships with people. There's I feel like I've got some beautiful relationships with the people
Yes.
who I have in my life. Now, I say this understanding that some of your audience will feel like, oh, well, that's good for you. Right now, I'm dealing with, this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that, like you live this challenge-free life also.
Oh,
So
no.
no, like, we live in a world of equal and opposites and opposition in all things. And, some people would say like 50% good, 50% bad, so I'll give you an example. Yesterday, my eldest daughter, she's 23 years old. She lives in her own house. She was visiting with her puppy, who's like 5 months old, gorgeous dog. And there was an accident and he broke his leg here, and it was very traumatizing. He screamed like a car alarm, and we had to go to emergency vet care, and he's still in vet care. My daughter's staying here. It was a mess of an afternoon. There were a lot of
Yeah.
tears between my daughter, who accidentally, um, created the accident, and the daughter who's like now her baby is in, emergency care. Like life gives you, and it gives you,
Lemons
equally.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what your original question was, to be quite honest, but I just wanted to point out, like, as you are going forward with this abundant mindset, you'll still get the challenges, and that's
Oh, yes.
okay.
Yes.
You can still create the loving relationships, the beautiful relationship with God. And the more you do those things very deliberately that are going to help you to create more of an abundant energy, you can cope with the challenges in a very different way. You can create intentionally more of the beautiful relationships you want, more of the exquisite health that you desire, more of the money
Yep.
coming into your life, all of that. And we think we have to wait for something outside of us. So much of it is within us. And I think all
Yes.
the relationships, your original question was about my relationship with God and others and all of that. So, an abundance mindset for me definitely creates more beautiful relationships, because
Yes.
I am a different being. Who I bring to the table is, who I bring to that dynamic of each of those relationships is a different person. And so
Yes.
that makes the relationship a different entity in and of itself for the
Yes.
relationships.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I'll tell you, like, these are still some things that I'm learning, about abundance. Like, I feel like I trust God sometimes, but sometimes my abundance tier over here is still like, hello, is there any water in there? Right? Oh my gosh, I think I just saw the sun scorching through the bottom, kind of kind of one of those things. But
Mm-hmm.
I can honestly say that it all comes back to a trust issue. Trusting that others will show up right when you need them to, trusting that you can show up the way you need to, and trusting that God will show up.
Yeah.
And it's not about a trust with money, honestly,
Yeah.
because money is a tool that God gives you to be able to run your life. You
Hmm.
know, it's a resource.
I want to add though, as you say that, um, sometimes people say like God gives you, and yes, God gives us everything. He gives us all good things. But sometimes when we say things like that, when we are at the absence of it, or we're like, oh, it's not flowing as rapidly as I want it to right now because I've got this bill and my kids need this and we're
Hmm.
planning to go here. So when we look at the opposite of like God gives us this and we think, well, God's not giving it to me. Um, but usually it's just simply us withholding the gift from ourselves through the way that we practice being abundant or not being abundant.
I agree completely with that because we tend to kind of stand in our own way more than what we should. I actually got this quote, and I'm going to paint it on my wall
Nice.
today, and it says, I am far too great to be the only thing standing in my way.
I love it.
Isn't that powerful? I was like,
That is
oh,
powerful.
I'm like, that's going on this wall right here.
Yeah.
That's what needs to be right there. And so, yeah, like, and it's so true because God's not the one standing in our way. It's really not other people standing in our way either. It's whether or not we feel like we're confident enough to take
Hmm.
the action.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
So true. So
So,
true.
yeah, I love it. That was juicy.
That is juicy. I'll be writing that down for sure.
I know. Okay, so I know one of your passions is to help moms like me to have the ability to create a lasting and abundant income. What advice do you have for the moms out there who have littles at home, taking up a lot of time, energy, and focus, but she wants to create an income for herself, but doesn't feel like she can because she's mom?
Yeah. So just a little bit of background about me. I have three children. Like I said, my eldest is 23 now, but when I became an entrepreneur, she was still a child. And when I created my first six-figure month as a coach, I was homeschooling my three children. And so like because I've done sometimes they've been in school, sometimes we've like homeschooled or unschooled
Hmm.
or whatever. I just kind of do what I want, right? As I've gone through life. And so I have had many of the excuses that well, I call them excuses, but the thoughts and the beliefs and the feelings that you're like, they feel like a very exceptional reason for me to say, like, I can't do this, or it's possible for someone else, but not for me, and the thought might
Hmm.
be like, you don't understand my situation, right? And we feel like a unique little snowflake or thumbprint or whatever. And we certainly are
Yes,
unique and individual and beautiful and exquisite, but honestly the problems and pains are common to man. We're like,
absolutely.
they're common to all of us. And
Absolutely.
so I want to share some things about raising children and those thoughts and feelings that you have, from my experience. And I hope that they're helpful. And if you guys want more help and discussion around this, then, you can come find me and we'll get involved in the discussion of it, right?
Hmm.
But some basic things is, number one, like there is infinite possibilities. And if you can think about something or dream about something, it's actually possible for you.
Absolutely.
Like there is a version of your reality where that is possible. And if it wasn't possible, you wouldn't even be thinking it, right? So it's possible if you imagine yourself, say, like whatever your money situation is now, and you imagine that like multiplied, and or your health, and you imagine like feeling whole, like that's a possibility for you.
Hmm.
Now, can you think of exactly what needs to happen to create all of that right now? For some things, the answer might be yes, but for a lot of things, the answer is just simply no. You
Yeah.
might only know the first step, or your first step might be to like research what the first step is. You know what I
Right.
mean? Um,
Absolutely.
so knowing that what you desire is possible, here are some things that will help you to get into a more abundant mindset, even if you've got little kids at home.
Hmm.
Because I created a six-figure coaching business while I was homeschooling, working roughly on average, like, 15 to 20 hours a week max. Mostly I would have said it was about, it felt like about a 12 to 15-hour week. And I was homeschooling, and I had a life. A lot of my siblings live around, so we would play a lot and do things. Like, I have a very full life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so even with that, I will share some things that have really been helpful for me and helpful for my clients. Number one, know what lights you up, right?
Right.
It
Love
sounds
that.
so basic, but know what lights you up. So I'll give you an examples for me. And so this is irrelevant to what's happening with your kids, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's having plants in my house. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've got this variety of plants, some tall, some small. My husband doesn't really like them, but it's too bad. I love them, like, well, he doesn't like, no, it's not that he doesn't like them, right? But he doesn't love them as much as I do. I love them, right? So for
Yes.
me, having those, my energy rises. Having them in the house, my energy rises. I feel like more light comes into me.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is having like a full fruit bowl or two, right? If I have a full fruit bowl, I feel abundant as. I feel like a millionaire. I'm like, look how beautiful my fruit bowl is, you know. And living in Australia, like, and particularly living in Sydney, we get fruit and vegetables from tropical climates, subtropical climates, like cold climates. So we have a beautiful variety of produce that's available to us. And so, like, I love having that, right? And massages light me up. I love massages.
Mm-hmm.
Physical touch is one of my love languages, one of my highest love languages. And so those are some things for me. They just make me feel good, right?
Mm-hmm.
A sunrise and a sunset, right, just
Mm-hmm.
makes me feel good. And so we can say, some people might say, I don't even have the money to fill my fruit bowl because fruit's so expensive right now, Kushla. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what, my love, you can walk outside and watch a sunrise. You can walk outside and watch a
Oh, yeah.
sunset,
Well,
you
and one of
know?
the things that light me up, is actually taking a nice long walk. And I've
Mm-hmm.
got littles at home.
Yep.
I've got olders too, but
Yeah,
I do have
yeah.
littles at home, and I go out and I take a walk and I go through like these fields. It's like an Anna Green Gables kind of a step into the movie kind of moment, and I see the deer
Beautiful.
like frolicking, and it's that's absolutely free. Like, we don't have to spend a ton of money to create this feeling of I'm good. I've got this. I've got so much good in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Often we don't have to spend any money. Like,
yeah.
we actually don't have to feel abundant. We should all be able to know what lights us up. And some of those things should be free, like the sunrise and
Mhm.
sunset. I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't know what's wrong with your eyeballs if that does not make you feel good. I'm sorry. But if looking at a sunrise or a sunset does not feel amazing to you, we need to take you to get your eyes checked because
I love it
like,
too.
yeah,
Yes.
they are just amazing. God's created this beautiful planet.
Mhm.
Sometimes for me, it was like when I take my early morning walks, walking in the mist. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is so awesome, walking in the mist early in the morning
Mhm.
and like just seeing like shards of light shine through. And I was like, I'll
Oh,
try and capture
yes.
this in my camera.
Yeah, and you can't.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I'm like,
You
I've
just
got a
can't.
couple of good photos, but then you're like, oh. So there are things, regardless of your situation, regardless of you having little children, and I understand like it can feel challenging, but basically you get to choose where to put your time, energy, and attention. And I think a lot of the time as mums, we think our value is in always being available to our children. We think
No.
we're not a good mum, like, because we think of the terms like stay-at-home mum, full-time mum. And I've even heard mums, and this really ticks me off, so don't ever say it in front of me. Like,
Promise I
it's
won't.
like, yeah, yeah. It's like, oh yeah, I've got my husband to babysit the kids. I'm like, dude, he's not the babysitter, he's the father.
He's a parent.
Yeah, he's a parent.
Mhm.
And just as much as you look after the kids, he can look after the kids. So,
Mhm.
so, and for those who maybe you're separated or it's not safe for your child to be with your
With dad.
spouse or partner. Like, I promise you, there are somewhere out there, there are angels who can help you look after your children.
Yes.
And I'll give you a small example, and I will try not to get teary, even though I'm talking about myself, and it sounds a bit self-aggrandizing, and I certainly don't want to do that. But we had a young family in our ward a few years ago, and they had a separation. She'd gone to Korea for a few weeks. 3 days before she was due to come back, her husband told her, like, don't come back. By the way, I'm keeping the daughter. So because of the kind of thing with the visa situation as it was changing over, she really had like minimal rights. And he'd emptied their stuff out of their house, emptied their bank account. She had no place to go. She was young, like 20, 21. Like, it was such a difficult circumstance for her. And I had said a prayer. I said I was going to try not to get teary. Anyway, I'd said a prayer. Heavenly Father, like, this is before knowing of this situation. And I was like, Heavenly Father, like, please, if there's someone that I can help, like, just let me know. You know, and honestly, I thought I might like have to like take a meal somewhere.
Ends up being more than this because I know this story.
Yeah, I thought I might have to take a meal somewhere. And you know, just a few days later, I found out about the situation, and I spoke to this beautiful young woman who's now like a dear friend of mine. She was a friend already, but she's become a very dear friend of mine, and her daughter as well feels like, you know, my grandchild. And I said, come stay with us. Like, I know, you know, this is your child. Like, we'll do whatever. And so I stepped in, and my family stepped in. It was definitely a family effort. Like, my youngest daughter gave up her bedroom for her, and we did all the things to help her get her daughter back. And you know, that relationship, like, she's doing so well. Her and baby doing so well. And
Oh, I'm so happy to hear
yeah,
that.
and you know, they've got a working relationship for parenting and everything now, and obviously divorced, but they've got a working relationship for how to safely and healthily, you know, look after their child. But if to get to the point of what I was saying, it's like, we can feel like there's no one else who can do things but us.
Yes.
And I just want to promise you, there are people who God can send your way, who sometimes it requires you to like have a difficult conversation, to be a little bit vulnerable, to ask. And you can't, and we've got to understand, we can't figure out everything ourselves. We can only take action. Like, we can just take the next step often. But often that's all that's needed is the next step. And then God will send whoever needs to be sent your way when you stay focused on what's possible. When you say, I'm going to shut down, when you say, because of what I see in front of me, I cannot have this abundance. We're using the word abundance, but I cannot have this thing that I want, that I need, you know, right now. But I just want you to know, like, again, miracles don't happen in the specific order, and whatever it is you need, you can, even if it doesn't deliver itself immediately to you, which often it does, but you can definitely start drawing in and attracting the resources, the people, the things that you need.
Absolutely.
Even if you're a mum with young kids.
Yes.
Even if you're a mum with young kids. And it's a beautiful experience. I know this is a long-winded advice. The other thing I'm going to say, so do what lights you up, ask for help, resources, and then I teach something called the SES principle, right? So strategy, energy, structure.
Mm-hmm.
So that you want to figure it, like, you want to have a look, what do I need to do? Like, what skills can I improve, increase? So the strategies, right?
Mm-hmm.
The energy, that's like your mindset, your heart set, like, what are the energetic states I want to get myself into? If I already had what I wanted, what would be that energetic state, that way of thinking? What would be my mindset if I already had what I wanted?
Mm-hmm.
And then the structure, like, what's the flow in my life? What's going to help me to do whatever the strategy is, in the way that works with my values and in an alignment with the lifestyle that I have now and what I'm wanting to create. So the SES principle can, like, and I know I'm not going to dive into all of that right now, but it's a really helpful little framework to think about as you, like, try and take your next steps.
Absolutely. And there was something you said earlier, right at the beginning of that question, is you're not that unique wondering that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's true, because if we were unique at thinking that I can't do XYZ because I'm a mom, well, then that question wouldn't be around, and I wouldn't hear it all the
Mm-hmm.
time,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And but I gotta also mention here that like one of the most catalyst things, for the longest time I was using my kids as a reason not to build a business, not
Mm-hmm.
to earn money, not to lean forward into this, until someone asked me, why are you blaming your kids for not being able to create flow? Like, why are you blaming
Yeah.
your kids not being able to create money? I was like, ooh. you
Mm-hmm.
know, it
Mm-hmm.
was a whole different mindset. And now I'm like, no, I get to work and I get to create. And honestly, we're living in a time now where there are so many ways to create money. Like,
Oh, yeah. We're
yeah.
we're actually living in the best time in the
Yes.
history of the planet to create wealth and money.
And and what about, like, then this is kind of like an introduction to the next question, but we are a little concerned about some of the times that are coming, but what a better way to enter what's coming
Mm-hmm.
than knowing you can bank on yourself, knowing, hey, I've got this. If, yeah, maybe money isn't going to be around or something like that, but I need some farm eggs. Like for me, I'm sitting there thinking, I need farm eggs. I need a little bit of flour. I can teach,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a good teacher. And that's
Yeah.
something that's still going to be needed in when, like, if the economy collapses or something like that.
Yeah.
I can still barter, I can still trade, I can still be abundant. There's still going to be an abundance of things then. But talking a little bit about that, the times that we're in right now, and a lot of things that are causing people to fear for what tomorrow brings.
Mm-hmm.
We've got corrupted governments, high gas prices, high food prices. The cost of living seems to be higher than what people are able to bring in to support themselves and their families, even though we do actually have like so many resources to be able to create cash.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for people that are just scared right now? How can they start to create abundance for themselves so that way they can feel more certain in the times we are in and for the times that are coming?
Yeah. So the first thing is, corruption in governments and all of that stuff. It's been around for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes our eyes just not on it, though. There's people in the background being like, I've been telling you this for the last XYZ years. You should have read this book, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah. And I know for me, well, actually, I think the last 2.5 years have been incredibly fascinating, which is a word that I share with one of my best friends when we're like, what, like what, it's like a what the hell kind of moment. Like what, like, like,
Yeah, like
sometimes really
that just happened.
frustrating to
Yeah.
like, yeah, to like
Yep.
what. So we're like, oh, I had a fascinating experience, or I had, a fascinating conversation. We just changed the energy up of the word. Um, but it says a lot, right? Without
Yeah, it
kind of
does.
being sucked down into like that heavy energy. But you know, we feel like we know what's coming if we look at our scriptures and look at prophecy and stuff. We can say we feel like we know what's coming, and but it's interesting, right? Because someone like might say, yes, you know what, all this is going to happen before Christ returns. And I reckon it's going to be about this time period. And someone else will say, well, no, it's this time period or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. What I do know is whatever is to come, like your ability to act is only in the present moment. So the first thing to focus on is like, what do you actually want to create? Like whatever's to come, set aside. If you were to have this ideal vision of what your life looked like, still work from that, and create from that space. And also just say, you know what, I want to be someone who feels like, I've got a calm nervous system. Like I've set myself up to just feel as relaxed as possible in urgent situations. And, a collapse of economy is one urgent situation, but we can have personal urgent situations. So like I just told you with my daughter and her dog, like, that was an unexpected expense of, yesterday it was like about $1,200. The surgery, could be probably around $4,000. We're not quite sure yet. We've got to get the quotes. Like that was an unexpected situation, and so things can happen whether the economy is collapsing or not. But in our brains, we want to rush ahead into this like traumatic experience, and we want to think, oh, like I know exactly what this is going to look like. This is going to be terrible, and we just like trigger the heck out of ourselves. And and I'm like, I really believe in getting educated to get prepared. And so over the last 2.5 years, I did some deep diving down all sorts of rabbit holes and learning all sorts of things, or reminding myself of certain things, and like rechecking my understanding of certain things, whether it's a sign of the times, whether it was like understanding what's happening with our health situation, governments, all of those things, upcoming food shortages, weather manipulation, all of those things, which there's so much horrible stuff happening in the world, and there's so much beautiful, amazing stuff happening in the world. So, what can you do? Like you can do, often it's like so simple. And I'm like, just put a portion aside for the future, just that stuff that every financial like advisor or wealth coach worth the money will always talk about putting a portion aside for the future. Like, and you've got to be intentional, like in different situations, what do we want that to look like? So for instance, in my family, like, so there's probably about 30 extended family members who kind of live locally. We discussed like, hey, what would be the worst that happened if like there was a zombie apocalypse, like and I used to like, I'm like, I hate it when my husband would talk about zombie apocalypse, like just jokingly. But then I'm like, you watch certain things and you see how viruses manipulate, and like, okay, this is feeling a little bit more real here. So
I know,
right? And not to like make people, freak out about anything, but we discussed, like, hey, if we shared a piece of land. And so my nephew has actually bought this big piece of land, and so that we have family, we have land, and I'm like, yeah, I'll give you like this little portion, but we talked about what skills we bring to the table. So like you can have discussions as a family, as an extended family. Like you spoke about skills and teaching, and we actually said like, oh yeah, my daughter Leah, she's great at teaching the kids. I'm great at energy work, and then there's some who've done medical training and first aid training, and some are great at growing plants and whatever. So and that's like a real far out scenario there, but still, we've just prepped ourselves for that scenario. And then if we come home, or like, well, what if we've got to stay home? Like last year here in Sydney, we were told to like not leave our homes basically for 6 months. My niece, who was visiting yesterday from Melbourne, she lived in the most locked up city in the world, over the last 2 years. And she spoke of some of the trauma her and her family have experienced during that time. And it was such unnatural happenings. And, as things change, and, as all the corruption and things continue to unravel, I'm open to the possibility that it could actually they're not going to get their way very much. And I'm open to the possibility of being prepared for it. But what I do know is this: fear is not very helpful.
Exactly.
Yeah, fear is just not helpful. Worry is not helpful. And it's not that we have to be fearless. I absolutely think like if you're angry, be angry. If you're afraid, be afraid. But there's been some great science done on the brain and on emotions and on our feelings and stuff. And literally any feeling we can feel. I think the neuroscientist in this case is, I think her name's Jill Bolte. But she actually speaks about how any emotion can actually burn out, like physiologically burn out of our body within 90 seconds. So if you sit with it and you don't re-trigger it and you don't try and run it away from it, it will burn out of us physiologically in 90 seconds. Like, so just, and maybe you're like, I'm not going to get this done in 90 seconds, Kushla, you don't understand. And okay, that's another conversation, right? But the point is, like, feel some feelings, but don't rehash. If you're afraid of the future, don't keep rehashing the thoughts that are making you afraid. You know, find new thoughts to think.
Yes.
If you know certain situations trigger you thinking those thoughts, well, find different triggers to think other thoughts that you want to think. You know,
and I think, like, even considering taking a different route. Like, I know for a fact if I was on my walk and I saw a cougar, and that's a possibility. It really
I'm
is.
like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. Oh my
That's a
goodness.
possibility.
People talk about Australia. That's crazy.
I know, right? Or a bear. I know you bears. You and bears. But, like, me just walking, and if I were to see a cougar, I'd be like, oh, totally, like, there's the terror. And I would be trying to backtrack my steps. I would be walking backwards, making sure I could see that cougar at all times, right? But you have, like, my thought process here is you have to be able to sometimes change the journey. I mean, that's been the case for me so many times. Like, I honestly, when I was a kid, I never, like, when somebody asked me, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never would have said a betrayal trauma coach, right? Never. But here I am in this position because I was willing to change the journey. And it's crazy. I actually got both journeys. Just because I'm a betrayal trauma coach still doesn't mean that I can't love being a teacher. Just because we want to go to Australia someday doesn't mean we still can't go to Europe and check out the Jane Austen. I might be talking a little bit about my wishes and things here, but no, the whole point here is if you allow the fear to freeze you, you're more likely to get eaten by that cougar.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And come what may, like, I'm part of a faith, same faith as you, Erin, where like, we have a lot of people who've had dreams, dreams, had visions, and you can read these accounts of things and be terrified, right? I have a friend who, like, her family has had the gift of seeing spirits for many, many years, and she has kind of had many prophetic dreams for, like, our area and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound that crash hot, some of this stuff. But I made a decision. This is a decision I made. So, like, I made a decision. I will run my business and help as many people as I can until I can no longer do it anymore. Like, I'm just going to keep going and going to keep going, going to keep doing it and loving doing it, loving the journey till, like, it's just physically not a possibility for me to do it anymore.
Yes.
And
agreed.
While I'm doing it, I am stocking, rotating my food storage. My family we've had difficult conversations. We are prepared. So you're not afraid. But sometimes people don't feel prepared enough, so they think that means they should be more afraid. It kind of, well, that's not going to help you to be more prepared, is it? If you're more, if you say, like, because of this, I think I should feel more afraid. Nah, not that helpful, my love. It's like, and I am a solution finder. Like, that's been my gift for the longest time. So if it's not going to be helpful, I'm not going to bother with it.
Exactly.
Like that's my thing. And that's what I would recommend. Like, if it's not helpful for you to feel that way, I just wouldn't bother with it. I would, like, find another way, identify how you want to feel, have a look at, like, what thoughts create those feelings, and get on track with those. Do what work you need to do to get on track with having those thoughts and having those feelings, because all of that other stuff is not within your power. That little tiny circle of power that you have, it's not in that circle. But what
Right.
is within your circle are the thoughts that you think, which is going to generate the feelings and all of that stuff. So that's where you want to focus on, in that little circle of power, not all the big out there stuff that you feel afraid of because you can't control it, right? No, you can't control
Exactly.
it. So why are you freaking out about it? Um,
Exactly.
get educated, make some choices, make some decisions, and also hold the vision for your own life.
Yes. And know what you can do. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why it's important. Like, this is why I'm saying, start creating now. Like, even if it's not money, uh, being able to know that you have the ability to create no matter what, when, how, that's going to serve you well in uncertain times. You know what I mean? And I know, like, a lot of women, especially when they're dealing with, a bit of a, as you Australians love to say, egg of a husband,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Sometimes those husbands do. They leave you just on your butt, uh, out on the street,
Yeah, never
you
mind the
and the kids.
second
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, never
Look at
mind,
look at
right?
what's now. Like
Right?
what's happening now, right?
But you know what? If the best advice you can give somebody that's in that situation right now is, what can you create?
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about what's happening. Like, yes, you need to, yeah, I shouldn't say that. You should worry about what's happening, yes. But that's not going to serve you well if you stay there.
Yeah, be proactive about what's happening. Like make some decisions about what's happening, and address your feelings. Also, it doesn't mean you can't hold a vision for the future and act from that place. Hold an energy from
Absolutely.
that place. Sometimes in my relationship with my husband, things will happen, and one of us will want to freak out, and the other one's like, we hold the space, right? He'll hold
Hmm.
the space for me. Like yesterday, my husband had to hold the dog, and I drove because, like, if my kids bleed, I'm going to freak out, right? Yeah. Jaeger, my daughter's puppy, was really hurting and screaming, and my husband held him, right? Other times, I'm like, it's about, creating abundance and things. Like, my husband wants to freak out.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, just chill out, will you? And like,
Right?
yeah,
We
just
got this.
chillax. Yeah, we got this.
Chill
This is all
out.
good.
Yeah.
Um, and so sometimes you're not going to necessarily feel like you've got this straight away, and
No.
sometimes you will, and it's all okay, it's all good, as long as you begin to be aware of how you're viewing things, and not, again, don't be in the passenger seat of it all. Be the observer. So there's a powerful place when you're observing what's happening in your life. You're not as It's like you're not is attached to when things go good or bad, right? And
Hmm.
so then you can be in more of this creative space where you can go create the money, go create the experiences, create better health, create better boundaries so you can experience more love in your relationships, right?
Yes. Yes.
Some of you feel like there's no way I'm going to have this amazing relationship with my husband. Like, I think it's just beyond possibility right now,
I
right?
thought that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to for some, it will be a work in progress for the rest of their lives, because you
Hmm.
can't control what your husband does. Even if you're the best manifester, even if you're great at creating abundance, you cannot control another person. You can take charge of a responsibility for how you show up in the relationship, what boundaries you set, and what
Yes.
you say yes and no to. You do have
Yes.
that power. And
Yes.
if ultimately you're not willing to accept certain things in your life, and you're just like, it's this, and then game changes, you can then make different decisions around what you will have in your life and what you won't have in your life. We
Absolutely.
get to choose what we're willing to settle for.
Absolutely.
And we're all settling in some areas of our life, whether it's
Yes.
our health, our relationships, our money, whatever, we're all settling. And the game is to increase what we're settling for, and to
Up level.
honestly, yeah, up level, make it a game sometimes. Have fun around the experience. keep your eye on what you want and live as if you've already got it. Have fun while you're doing it. I'll tell you, when I, in the process of creating my 6-figure business, I have international retreats. That was like, I did that immediately. And why do I do it? Because I like it.
Right.
because I like to have fun. When I took my clients to New Zealand and we did whitewater rafting down the world's tallest commercially rafted rapids, it's because I wanted to do it. Because like, that sounds like fun, right? I built it into my business. I'm like, this is a mindset practice. And it certainly was. We went back and we discussed it with the ladies afterwards. And it was like a crazy fun experience. In Greece, we went kayaking out in the beautiful sea out there. Had some gorgeous Greek men take us out and watch
gorgeous
the
Greek
sun.
Men.
Yeah.
Love it.
That watch the sunset in the ocean out in these kayaks. It was an exquisite experience. In Italy, a private retreat with a client. We went on a horse and carriage ride in the cobbly streets of Italy. Here in Australia, we went surfing. We had surf instructors. Like, these are all things I want to do. Like, I intentionally, yes, I want to give experiences so that there are technicalities you're going to take care of. So I'm like, at some retreats, I'm teaching about Facebook ads or client enrollments or mindset work or abundance work or whatever it is we're teaching at the retreat. You're taking care of the logistics and I'm building in the fun. So you've got to think of like, what's the strategy, what's the structure, what's the energy? Again, bring it all, like, take care of those 3 different areas, and you can't help but be more magnetic to what it is that you desire.
Yes,
and it
manifest.
It's just like an impossibility. If you're paying attention to the simple things that you can pay attention to, it's just impossible not to be more magnetic to what it is that you desire.
Love it. I love it. So, our time is definitely wrapping up, and I want to thank you. It's been such an amazing interview, Kushla, and you've left me and our listeners truly more enriched and blessed. And I think I'm definitely going to come back to this podcast and listen to it like 40 million times, Be like, oh yeah, there's that part. But I know that there's going to be a lot of this audience that will want to reach out to you and see how you can help them create lasting abundance in a business or whatever it is. So how do they get in touch with you, and what goals can you help them achieve?
Cool. So I do business coaching, obviously, and life coaching. So there's a couple of ways they can reach out to me. If you're on Instagram, you can go to Kush Chadwick, Kush Chadwick, Chadwick. You can find me there. You can find my Facebook page, which is my full name, so Kushla Chadwick. But if you want to like get more in the nitty gritty of things, there's a couple of really cool ways I can help you. So I love Erin, and so I always want to help her community that little bit extra. So you can actually use this link for at least August. So whenever this goes live, you guys will have at least a month to use this. So go to calendly.com/Kushla, so Kushla, /breakthrough. Breakthrough -call-free. So I'll give you the link just to make sure, but I'm calendly.com/Kushla/breakthrough /call-free. And that's basically, it's going to take you a minute to fill out the questions on there. And you can book a call with me for free. It'll be like a 25-minute free call, and you can tick whether it's for life coaching or a business coaching. So that's one cool gift that I'm giving to your tribe. And otherwise, you can come and just get to know me better, have conversations. I can help you. If you want help with the business coaching, come to Love Uprising Coaching. So just go to facebook.com/groups, Love Uprising Coaching, or you can go to the Mindset Lab as well. So you can find me. I just gave you a plethora of ways to find me, depending how much help you want. There it all is.
Awesome. I love it. And I can't recommend Kushla enough, you guys. She's really made a huge difference in me. And I know, I was looking for a business coach for a long time before I found Kushla, and I was like, oh, she can actually get me what I want. So I I can't recommend her enough. But Kushla, again, this has been so amazing and enriching with you today, and I feel so blessed and enriched and more abundant in our conversation today. Thanks so much for being here and helping us build a more abundant life and mindset with your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for me on here. And yeah, just thank you for the wisdom you share and the beautiful light you share. It's just a joy for me to watch you and to see you helping your people as well. So yeah, lots of love and sunshine to everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Kushla. We'll see you
Thanks.
next week. Okay. Well, we'll see everybody else next week. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna